We are going back to the roots of Israel. According to the Qur'an, Prophet Solomon ruled over the jinn, spoke to animals, and was the richest man who ever lived. According to the Torah, he was only a wise king. With the temple he built in Jerusalem, he changed the future of all mankind. The holiest place for the Jews, underground tunnels, gigantic ancient cities, archaeologists carrying weapons. A deep story reaching to Al-Aqsa Mosque, the Temple of Solomon. The year is around 970 BC. It had been many years since the escape of the Jewish people from Egypt. After generations of living in deserts and mountains through wars, the Jews under the leadership of Prophet David took Jerusalem, and after him, his young son Solomon ascended the throne of the Jews. His reign is considered the golden age of Jewish history. Shortly after becoming king, Solomon began building one of the most mysterious structures in history, the Temple of Solomon, at the site we call today the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. Exactly here, where you now see the area known as the Temple Mount, which also contains the Al-Aqsa Mosque, this was once the most sacred place on earth. The last piece that still bears its traces is what you know as the Western Wall, the famous wall where Jews pray. Friends, to understand the importance of the Temple Mount, you must know this. For Jews, the holiest place is here, where the Temple of Solomon was built. According to their belief, God began the creation of mankind on this hill. Abraham prepared to sacrifice his son Isaac here. It is the Jewish Qibla. This hill is so sacred for them that even stepping on it is considered forbidden, so they do not enter. But not only in Judaism. Jesus, when he was still a child, dedicated himself to God here. The Muslims' Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock are also on the Temple Mount. Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven from here. This is the place that made Jerusalem what it is. The place all religions want to possess. And this is where the whole story of religious wars that have reached our time begins. After the temple was built, the Ark of the Covenant, which contained the 10 Commandments, the miraculous food manna, and the sacred staff of Prophet Aaron, was placed in its holiest chamber. Once everything was ready, a cloud, seen as a reflection of God, descended upon the temple. This was considered a sign that God had accepted the temple. So how did Prophet Solomon build the temple? Here we see different accounts between the Jewish holy book, the Old Testament, and the Quran. According to the Torah, Solomon was not a prophet. He was a king blessed with wisdom and wealth. He did not perform any miracles in the construction of the temple. With the help of the king of Lebanon and around 180,000 workers, the building was completed in 7 years. In the Quran, however, it is told that Solomon used the jinn in construction. Surah Sabah, verse 13. The jinn made for him whatever he wanted, elevated chambers, statues, basins like reservoirs, and stationary kettles. Work, O family of David, in gratitude, but few of my servants are grateful. Yet, friends, despite all these accounts, no trace of Solomon's temple has ever been found in archaeological excavations, neither in inscription nor a remnant. Some researchers claim that the Temple of Solomon lies beneath Al-Aqsa Mosque. As we mentioned, since the Al-Aqsa Mosque is a sacred site for Muslims and it stands on the Temple Mount, such a claim exists. In fact, many fascinating underground tunnels from various periods of Jewish history have indeed been discovered in the area. But since it would damage the Al-Aqsa Mosque, no excavation is allowed beneath it. Another conflicting historical situation concerns Solomon's magnificent palace, also said to be on the Temple Mount. In the Old Testament, the palace is described with such magnificence that while the temple was completed in 7 years, the palace took 13 years to build. In the Quran, it is said that the jinn also worked both in the palace and in bringing treasures to it. The astonishment of the Queen of Sheba in Solomon's palace is described as follows in Surah An-Nam, verse 44. She was told, "Enter the palace. But when she saw it, she thought it was a body of water and bared her legs. Solomon said, "It is a palace paved with glass." But again, no archaeological evidence of Solomon's palace has ever been found. This causes researchers to doubt whether such structures ever existed at all, or perhaps they have been looking in the wrong place. For if such monumental buildings did exist, it is impossible that no trace would remain. Some even turn their eyes elsewhere. Baalbek. The ancient city of Baalbek in Lebanon is one of the most magnificent, largest, and most mysterious structures of the ancient world. This massive temple complex is unique for three main reasons: the unimaginably huge stones, the colossal scale of the temples, and its remarkably well-preserved architecture. The blocks used in the foundation of the Temple of Jupiter weigh between 800 and 1,000 tons. They are monolithic and flawless. How these stones were quarried from a nearby site, transported about a kilometer, and lifted several meters high into place remains a puzzle even for modern engineering. Near the temple lies the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, Hajar el-Hibla. This stone is estimated to weigh about 1,200 to 1,650 tons. These are the largest stone blocks ever cut by humans in the ancient world, especially in Islamic tradition, because it is believed that Solomon used the jinn in construction. Some think that the massive blocks at Baalbek are in fact the true foundations of Solomon's temple and palace, and that the Romans later built their temples on top of them. Others extend this theory to connections with other ancient civilizations. But these claims do little more than fill in the blanks, because even though the mystery of transporting Baalbek stones has not been fully solved, we know how other massive stones of similar size were transported and used in different parts of the Roman world. After all, the Romans transported obelisks weighing up to 500 tons from Egypt to the city of Rome itself. So it is not very accurate to call something we don't yet understand a divine act. In short, our eyes turn again to Jerusalem, to the Temple Mount. But what would happen if archaeological evidence of Solomon's temple were ever found? Have you ever thought about it? You can be sure the entire world would change. In fact, there are already official institutions preparing for that. First, the Temple of Solomon would be rebuilt there. The ritual of animal sacrifice would be reintroduced among the Jews. The priestly class of the Kohanim would become active again. Descendants of Aaron, identifiable today by their surnames or family traditions, would return to their original duties. They would oversee the central parts of the temple. Today, institutions such as the Temple Institute are actively working to prepare both the temple and the Kohanim for that day. Sacred objects to be used in the temple are being reconstructed exactly as described. Special garments for the Kohanim are being woven. Through DNA tests and family records, descendants of the Kohanim are given special training. According to many Jewish beliefs, the rebuilding of the temple will herald the coming of the Messiah. This is seen as the beginning of a messianic era. The Messiah will gather all Jews scattered across the world back to the land of Israel. This will be both a physical and spiritual return, marking the end of centuries of exile for the Jewish people. Once the temple is completed, it will not only be a place of worship for Jews, but also a spiritual center for all humanity. Jews describe this as, "The world will be filled with the knowledge of God as the seas cover the ocean floor." Still, as we said, no original archaeological evidence of Solomon's temple has ever been found. So what happened to the temple if Solomon really had it built? Listen carefully now. According to the Qur'an, Prophet Solomon lived a devout life and died as such. But the Torah tells a different story. God had commanded the Jews not to marry women from certain nations, such as the Hittites and Edomites. Yet Solomon married many from these peoples, and even built temples for their pagan gods. In the first book of Kings, God says, Solomon worshipped Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Sidonites, and Moloch, the detestable idol of the Ammonites. On the hill east of Jerusalem, he built a shrine for Chemosh, the detestable god of Moab, and for Moloch, the detestable god of the Ammonites. He did the same for all his foreign wives so they could burn incense and offer sacrifices to their gods. As a result, God became angry with Solomon and began to tear the kingdom apart after him. This eventually led to the conquest of Jerusalem. Now, our story gets very interesting. Nebuchadnezzar, the great king of Babylon, the most powerful ruler of the Middle East, began invading the kingdom of Judah in 605 BC. For many years, he exiled the Jews from Jerusalem to Babylon. Later, he completely destroyed Jerusalem. Most importantly, he demolished the Temple of Solomon, the religious and national center of the Jews, along with the palaces and shrines. According to the Old Testament, all of the sacred treasures of Solomon's temple